Hello everybody, and welcome to ZTV Live. Today's Thursday, June 25th. I'm Susan Mulligan-Fleischman, and I'm so pleased to introduce our guest tonight. She's actually a new guest host, Virginia Amos, and she'll be hosting her Virginia Amos show on Thursday nights, and we'll get to Virginia in a minute. But first, a few words from our sponsors. Al's Steakhouse on Mount Vernon Avenue in Delray. Mention Zebra Fries and get a free order of their delicious fries with your sub-order. And by Dishes of India in the Bellevue Shopping Center in Alexandria. Dishes of India is well known for its fantastic Indian food. Mention the Zebra for 15% off your takeout order. Visit dishesofindia.com. And by Sicilian Pizza in Delray on Mount Vernon Avenue. Mention the Zebra when you buy one gourmet extra large pizza and get one free cheesecake. Visit sicilianpizza.com. Thank you. Thanks to all of our sponsors. If you'd like to become a sponsor on ZTV Live, we would love to have you. Just send an email to ads@thezebrapress.com. That's ads@thezebrapress.com. And now, a few words of news today. Alexandria City Public Schools has released the details of its planning process in deciding how to open school this fall. Because the area has been opening at a different pace than the rest of the state, ACPS is planning to include contingency plans in case buildings will need to remain closed past September. They have three possible options: a traditional opening, which most likely will not be an option, continuing with the virtual remote learning with refinements based on feedbacks that they had from the spring from students, staff, and families, and then multiple scenarios of a hybrid of sorts of the two to meet social gathering and social distancing guidelines. See the story on thezebra.org for more details. The City of Alexandria will install 4 new Capital Bike Share stations this summer. These stations are funded through new developments that have been constructed or are nearing completion on construction. Though the funding for these stations is tied to developments in the city, these Capital Bike Share stations are, as with all stations, for all members of the community to use and enjoy. See the story on thezebra.org for more details. And for all of you radio fans, the Mount Vernon Amateur Radio Club will hold a virtual event this weekend. Ham Radio, which is a name adapted from amateur radio, has more than 725 licensed operators in the United States. And the Mount Vernon Amateur Radio Club will hold its field day Saturday and Sunday, June 27th and 28th this weekend. Members will be able to talk and exchange information while giving the public a chance to learn about ham radio's uses and reliability. During the event, ham operators will try to contact as many stations as possible across the country. For more information and instructions on how to join or follow along, please see our story in thezebra.org. And the City of Alexandria announced it will host a virtual conversation to discuss local protocols and practices in light of recent national attention on racial disparities in policing. The event will be held Monday, June 29th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. The discussion will be facilitated by community activist Tiffany Flowers and include Mayor Justin Wilson and Police Chief Michael Brown as panelists. The panel will be introduced by Jacqueline Tucker, the city's Race and Social Equity Officer. The public will have the opportunity to ask questions following the formal discussion. And now I'd like to introduce our new guest host, Virginia Amos, to ZTV Live. Virginia, welcome to ZTV Live.
Thank you, Susan. I am delighted to be here.
Well, we are delighted to have you here. Great that you're going to have this show on Thursday nights and you'll be interviewing people in and around Alexandria.
Correct. I'm really focusing on the people, the businesses, and the organizations that make Alexandria such a great place to live and work.
Fantastic. And we all know it certainly is that. And I'll go ahead and I'm going to bring your guest tonight up on the screen. And it's Cary Kelly from the Cookery.
Exactly.
Hi, Cary, how are you?
I'm great. I'm glad you're tonight.
you so much for coming. And thanks for being Virginia's first guest. It's very exciting. And Virginia and Cary, I'm going to let you gals take it over from here.
Great. Thank you. Well, hello, everyone out there in digital world land. It's kind of strange to be talking to people I can't see, but here we are. So thank you. Again, I'm Virginia Amos. I am a realtor with Coldwell Banker in Alexandria, and I have come to know and love and know Alexandria over the past 30 years, and it just makes me happy to highlight all the ways that people are working to make this a better place to live. And I can't think of anybody better than my friend Cary Kelly, who owns the Cookery. Now, a caveat, the Cookery is in Arlington, but Cary herself is a lifelong Alexandrian, and so I think that she qualifies, and she's doing lots of good things. So Cary, welcome.
Thank you, Virginia. I'm excited to be here on Zebra TV with you.
Good. We're delighted to have you. There are lots of things I want to talk about with you, but most importantly, let's give our listening audience some information about your store and how long you've been there and what it is that you carry.
Okay. So my shop is called the Cookery, and we are indeed in Arlington in the village at Shirlington, which is really kisses the border with Alexandria. So I like to say we're serving both counties. So the Cookery is a gallery, I would like to say, for artisan makers in the culinary space. So we carry pantry items, but I'm very particular about what I carry. One of the reasons I opened the store was in a way to be an antidote to what is selling more and more in our grocery stores, foods that are full of preservatives and very low on flavor. So I work with small artisans, mostly around the United States, many local, who make foods that taste amazing. And these are packaged foods. I don't carry prepared foods, sandwiches, or anything like that, all packaged foods. But I also sell cookware and goods, most of which are also artisan produced, not all domestic, but things that have a long history and quality for great cookware.
But your business has really evolved from when you first opened the store.
Very much so. And I think for entrepreneurs, whether you're a real estate agent or a retail owner, evolving is how we survive. You know, we have to constantly watch our marketplace and see what is changing. I opened the store 10 years ago, primarily as an olive oil store. That was a hot trend at the time, and we were the first olive oil centric store in the DC area, and it served us really well. Lots of people had seen olive oil store in travels around the country and were so excited to see one opening. But I saw various trends. I think within 3 years there were probably 30 olive oil stores in this area. Grocery stores started carrying more olive oil. So I did two things. One, I really narrowed down and became even more particular about the quality and the sourcing of the olive oil that I carry, but I also expanded, further into the kitchen and even the dining room with the products that we carry.
Right. And I know, this full disclosure, I worked at the Cookery for a brief amount of time.
Lucky me.
I know one of the things that you are so passionate about and that you have really brought to your store is this notion that we are all connected by food, and that food is an entree into different cultures. It's an entree into understanding our neighbors. Mm-hmm. But it is also, much like Jose Andres has proved to the world, food is necessary. It literally feeds us. It feeds us spiritually. It feeds us emotionally. It feeds us so we can get up and go to work in the morning. And you have really have embraced that in so many ways.
Yeah, very much so. And thank you, Virginia, for acknowledging that. Part of that comes out of my own personal passion for justice and equality. Food justice is a huge area that doesn't really get talked about a lot. I think many of us have heard terms thrown about now and then, food deserts. People in lower income urban areas don't have access to good food. They have a McDonald's, but it's too far to go to a grocery store, no access to a farmer's market. So food deserts are an issue, food justice, but also when you read back through history, most movements have been fomented, literally nourished around tables. You can certainly say that about the civil rights movement, where many of the discussions and the brainstorming happened around laden and abundant tables in the South, where women, Black chefs, this was part of their activism. Yeah. So I'm very interested in the justice part of it. I'm also very interested in how far we are being removed from the source of our food. I grew up in suburban Alexandria. I didn't know that broccoli didn't grow on a grocery store shelf when I was a kid. And so also I will say, as I watch the quality of our food diminish in grocery stores because of mass production and the need for, long-term preservation of foods, nothing tastes good anymore. And that's one of the great fundamental and elemental pleasures that we have in life, is the taste of good, fresh food. And so it's both of those. I want people to get back a little closer to the earth and eat food that has ingredients that are pure, but I'm also very interested in the whole area of justice and willing to use my store as a platform for that.
Well, I know of at least 2 campaigns you have conducted, so why don't you tell us a little bit more about those?
Sure. There is sort of an unwritten, not a rule so much, but a practice with entrepreneurs, I guess maybe particularly retail owners, that you stay politically neutral because we have customers on both sides of any issue, right?
Right.
I made a decision not to do that some years ago. Maybe not necessarily in the beginning, but some years ago I did when issues became really important to me, and I realized that my platform is my business, and I was willing to take that risk. I have no interest in offending anybody and respect all viewpoints. And I have chosen some causes that I think are really important. And I've done it a few ways. I've always had products in my store, at least the last 5 or 6 years, products in my store that raise money for various causes. I have raised quite a bit of money for the Coalition for Immigrants' Rights in Washington, D.C. That's a wonderful organization that provides free legal service to detained immigrants. And so that's an ongoing campaign, but I also did a very sort of a big fundraising effort about 2 years ago when that became a really important issue in our nation. And so I let our customers know that, they have an opportunity to support this effort. Most recently, I joined a fabulous, this is food. This is sort of a story of food and social media. 3 chefs in Washington, D.C. decided to have a virtual bake sale and invite both professional and amateur bakers to spend 1 week raising money for organizations that fight racism. And they hoped to get about 70 bakers, maybe around the country, or at least the eastern half of the country. They ended up getting thousands of bakers all over the world. They raised $1.5 million collectively, and I joined that effort. And our customers were amazing. I baked 8 cakes and dozens of brownies and cookies and various confections. And so we were able to send a nice check to Color of Change. And that to me is an example of food. You know, people were buying food that sounded really good to them. They were taking a box of homemade goods home to their tables, sharing it with their friends and family, knowing that they contributed to something that was really important. So that's just such a prime example of where food is at the center of everything important in our lives.
I love that story, and congratulations for having done such a great job. And in some ways it goes back to, I don't know about you, but growing up, if my brownie troop or my social club or my swim team, whatever, you wanted to raise money, you had a bake sale.
Exactly.
It was, there's a long-standing tradition.
Long tradition
of bake sales.
And chefs were very consciously building on that tradition, and they knew that, instead of putting table out on the sidewalk and raising a few $100s, maybe we could raise a few thousand by doing it, taking advantage of social media, and they ended up with over $1 million. So
I think it's great. And I think there's just so much change going on now, and people are looking at such different ways of doing things.
Yes.
When I think this is a great example of, wow, we can make a difference, and look, this is how we can do it.
Yeah.
Which is fabulous. Talking about broccoli growing in the grocery store, I do think that one of the things that has come out from our time at home in this quarantine have been the grocery boxes that I've ordered online. I have one friend, and she gets the box of seconds.
Yeah.
Which is great because it doesn't have to be pretty to taste good.
It tastes great, right?
And she, every week it was something new, and it was fruits and vegetables that her family was not familiar with. And
so, great.
Opportunity to try it. And also to have her children involved in the cooking. And apparently that is one way to get kids to eat things that they think they don't like.
Right. Right. My stepdaughter lives on a small farm in Annapolis, and her kids are big vegetable eaters because they grow them. They have a garden in their backyard, and her kids pick the zucchini and bring it in. And I think that's another interesting thing that has happened during this quarantine, in addition to the many clever ways that providers have packaged food, both prepared and uncooked. People are cooking so much more at home, and the growth of vegetable gardens, apparently you cannot buy seeds for fruits and vegetables because they are all bought up. Everybody's growing gardens, and when they're not tending their garden, they're baking bread. And I love the thought of all these people on quarantine with their hands in the dirt or their hands in the flour, or looking at a vegetable that doesn't look like what they saw in the grocery store and figuring out what to do with it. That to me is one of the most beautiful images coming out of this crisis.
And it really it connects people with the food chain.
Yes.
And, one of the things that I've learned, and I'm sure you know this already, but the food chain has been so completely disrupted.
Yes.
And truthfully, it needed disruption.
Yep.
And maybe going forward, this is a real opportunity to look at how the food chain really exists and what it exists for.
Yes.
Instead of, supplying crates and crates of things, maybe we're, little half boxes of things, that it's not, doesn't have to be this huge migration every time.
Yeah, I think the big challenge, big ag in America, I say that with, as if it is a villain, because I do think of big ag as a villain. Big ag exists and continues to exist because we as American consumers are addicted to convenience. And if this quarantine can bring some patience into some of the things that guide our everyday life, like accessing our food, that could begin to break that chain and would be good for small farmers and farmers markets and things like that. But it's a decision we all have to make, that we're willing to spend a little more time to not have everything at our fingertips in a grocery store, but to have to make a second trip to the farmer's market, or a couple of things like that. If we're willing to do that and we're willing to spend a little more time on preparation, then I think we can begin to take back the quality of our food. And that should be a movement in this country. It's a very quiet movement, mostly run by what's called the specialty food movement. There is an association for specialty food, and that's all of these small makers that I work with who care very much about where they source their ingredients. And there are only 2 steps. It's from the farm to them, to me. So those are very few steps to your table. But for that to get big enough to fill our grocery stores it's going to require some real change in the way that we consume.
Well, that's a good segue. Tell us about some of your favorite products, food products that you have in the store right now.
Wow, that's a hard one. This might sound odd, I suppose, or maybe not what how you would expect me to answer. But the first thing that came to my mind was salt. I carry my favorite salt is Maldon salt from Essex, England. And a very quick story: when I was a child, I contracted a kidney infection that was very, very serious and lasted for a couple of years. And so for 2 years, from the time I was 11 to 13, I couldn't eat any salt. My poor mother, who was not a cook, had to figure out how to find bread with no salt. I mean, these kind of dietary restrictions were not easily satisfied in grocery stores in those days. So I didn't develop a taste for salt and went into my adult years not applying salt to anything. And one day when I was probably 30-ish, a friend brought me fleur de sel from France. And I was like, pretty, but I don't eat salt. And one day I decided to put it on some broccoli. And I equate this to the sort of palate equivalent of when Turner Broadcasting puts color to a classic movie. It's like, whoa! And so I have a real love and appreciation for good salt. And table salt is an abomination and shouldn't be on anybody's table. So I think Maldon salt is just, I love the texture and I love the mineral flavor of it, and it's just it's wonderful. So that's one of my favorites. I would say another favorite. There's a guy in Louisville, Kentucky named Matt Jamie. He was the first person to come up with the idea to repurpose bourbon barrels for food products. Mm-hmm. It's so common now. I mean, there's bourbon barrel wine and bourbon barrel beer. It's very common. But Matt started this in Louisville, of course. And he has a line of food that not only do they have sort of this richness from the bourbon barrels, but he uses really good products. For instance, a Worcestershire sauce. He also has an aged soy sauce with no fructose, none of that stuff that's aged in bourbon barrels, and it is an elixir. So some of those kind of things are really my favorites. And I like to encourage people to fill their pantries with some of these items that are, it's like olive oil. Olive oil is in that category. Really fine quality. They can sit in your pantry and they add just that little something. Even if your vegetables came from the frozen aisle at the grocery store, fine, steam it, add a little bit of aged soy sauce, and a good Maldon salt, and suddenly it does not taste like frozen broccoli anymore. And so I love finding those kinds of things.
Is he the one who did the smoked brown sugar?
Yes.
Oh, that is to die for.
Isn't it? Oh, my God.
And just putting a little bit of that, like in a pound cake or some cookies, It just adds.
Or as a rim on your cocktail.
Yeah. You can't tell quite what it is in the background, but boy, do you know.
Yeah. Oh, it's just amazing.
And of course, I absolutely credit you for my education about olive oil. And when I don't get to buy olive oil in your store, I'm so conscious of what I'm looking for out in the other stores, because now I know what good olive oil is supposed to taste like.
Yes, I like creating olive oil snobs.
Yeah, well, you did. What about honey? And the reason I ask is because the other day, it's been there for 3 years and I didn't know about it. But the neighbors behind us, we have an alley that goes about halfway into the block. And she has had a beehive 25 feet from my back door for 3 years. And I didn't know anything about it. And the other day, she brought us a jar of honey. And wow, what a treat.
A treat.
A treat.
Honey is like so many other things. What I'm about to say, I could probably say the same thing about most of the products in my store. You can go to the grocery store and buy honey. It has been pasteurized, filtered. It basically tastes like sugar. When you get a raw, unpasteurized honey, you taste the beehive.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a beautiful richness that is just so unlike the filtered processed honeys that are widely available in the grocery store. And I know that people say that when you eat local honey, it has some health benefits. I don't have a medical degree. I don't get into the health benefits of things. I'm really all about the flavor. Yeah. And I think, you just seeing your face light up when you talked about it, that when you get a raw, unpasteurized honey, that's what the difference is. The grocery store honeys really do just taste sugary. And these, you can taste the bees, you can taste the hive. It just has a complexity and a depth of flavor that is wonderful.
And, I think that talking about you with the salt, I had never put much stock into, probably because I grew up in West Virginia, but much stock into organic things and the fact that they tasted differently. Probably about 10 years ago, we went up in the Hudson River Valley with my mother, and we were lucky enough to have lunch at Blue Hill Farm, which is, north of the city, and it was the old Rockefeller property. Organic chickens, organic eggs. The egg salad was like a ball of sunshine, and the taste was unlike anything I'd ever had.
Yeah. And that is really what we are so spoiled by the convenience of processing that we don't know what we have sacrificed.
Yeah.
And many people, when they travel to Europe and go to smaller villages, they come back and they say the food was so good. Well, the reason is because it had just touched the earth within a few days. And we don't have that anymore. And I think, even, putting aside, this is bad enough, but putting aside whatever medical things are happening with all the preservatives, that's one issue, but nothing has any flavor. If you were to put a blindfold on and pick 5 different fruits from the grocery store and eat them, other than texture, you wouldn't be able to tell a difference in the taste. They all taste like slightly sugary water. The apple has lost its appleness. The pear has lost its pearness. Meat doesn't taste like anything. If you grill it, you taste charcoal. You don't taste meat. And, when you go to a butcher, like Let's Meat on the Avenue in Delray, when you go to a butcher, it's like, you don't have to do anything to it because you're tasting the animal. Just like with a vegetable, the eggs, you're tasting the hen. You're that close to it. And I think that flavor is really critical to our survival, not just our happiness, But our brains were actually, this is an unscientific explanation, but our brains were designed to experience a kind of euphoria when we taste something delicious, so that we'll go back and seek it again. And our earliest ancestors had nutritional variety by craving that fuzzy thing that came off of a tree that we now know is a peach, or that creamy thing that's a banana, or, they got nutritional variety by having this sort of sense of euphoria that was so good they went out and tried to find it again. And we don't have that now. We never quite reach that euphoria. That could be one of the contributors to the obesity in our country, that we keep eating more because our brains are saying, not there yet.
Not satisfied. Right.
Yeah. Because, we all know when you taste a really good chocolate or a really good peach or a really good anything, it doesn't take very many bites and you're like, I'm satisfied.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I'm right there with you on all of this. I did want to mention quickly that you also carry cookbooks in your store, and you're very deliberate about the cookbooks. And I just emphasizing again that you really carry what you call a curated collection. And it's not like going to a regular kitchen store that may be part of a chain. You really have picked things that appeal to your sense of food justice, perhaps, and also of chefs and cooks that you want people to know about.
Yeah, that's right. And cuisine. I think that we're a little too, many of us are a little too intimidated in the kitchen. And I think if you can learn to use fish sauce, for instance, from buying a Thai cookbook, you may not cook Thai anymore, but you've realized that fish sauce is pretty cool in some other things, like that egg salad, for instance. And so I think international cuisine, it does two things. One is it expands our experience of flavor, but also what a wonderful way to learn about other cultures.
Mm-hmm.
As I always like to say, I don't think you can hate somebody that you break bread with.
Yes. You're absolutely right about that. Even your loved ones.
Yes.
Can't be mad if you're sharing food.
That's right. It's a good way to resolve an argument. Let's sit down and break some bread.
That's right. And have a glass of wine with it, and we're ready to go. Well, Cary, I can't tell you what a pleasure it has been to have you on tonight. I would urge all of you out there in our listening world to check out Cary's store, the Village at Shirlington. It is a sensory delight to go in, and you will find things that you never knew about, things that you never knew you needed, and you'll walk away a really happy person.
Aww. Virginia, thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be a part of your village. Your friendship means a lot, and I'm excited about what you're doing in promoting Alexandria. And if I were ever going to move again, you'd be my choice for a realtor.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Susan, thank you so much for steering the ship tonight and getting us off to a good start. And so I'm going to say good night, and I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Virginia, for coming on. Cary, thank you so much for joining us on ZTV. What a wonderful conversation this was for a foodie like me and gourmands all over. And so much of what you said, Cary, just rang so true. The further away you get from the food from its natural source, the more it loses a little bit along the way. And I will be going back to your store. I've been there before, and I'll be definitely going back, and I'll be sure to say hello when I come in.
I will look forward to that, Susan.
Excellent,
Thank you.
Cary. Thank you. Virginia, thank you so much. What a pleasure to have you join the crew here at ZTV Live. And you have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next Thursday.
See you next Thursday. Okay, bye.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye, gals. Well, that was really a wonderful conversation, and so great to hear. Great to meet Cary Kelly, and we're just thrilled to have Virginia on board, as I said. That's going to wrap us up for tonight, ZTV Live, as well as for the week. We just want to make sure that if you have any good news to share, Send us a photograph or a quick story about it, and we would love to share your good news. If you've seen any acts of kindness around, we would really love for you to share with us, and we can share it with our viewers. And viewers, let us know what you'd like to see in the show, because we would love to bring it to you. So I hope everybody has a wonderful Friday tomorrow and a great weekend coming up. And in the meantime, be sure that you be the good news in someone's life.